What if I told you that the Hollywood scandal you thought was over has just exploded again, and the names being dragged into the storm will leave you speechless because now it's not just Blake Lively, not just Justin Baldoni, not just Taylor Swift. This time, Rebel Wilson, Camille Vasquez, and a hidden network of secret PR operatives have entered the battlefield, and the evidence uncovered could unravel everything you thought you knew about this case. Stay with me because this saga is about to take the darkest twist yet. The saga has reached a point where every passing hour feels like a revelation, pulled straight from the most shocking drama imaginable. And yet this is no script, no fiction. It is the tangled web of Hollywood players and power brokers who now find themselves bound together by lawsuits, declarations, betrayals, and secrets spilling into the public eye. And as I unravel this storm for you tonight, the sheer number of names and faces caught in this firestorm will make you wonder how such a tightly wound machine of fame, wealth, and reputation could unravel so spectacularly. We began with Blake Lively, the actress who has tried desperately to shield herself behind her husband, the megastar and business mogul, Ryan Reynolds, but the shield has cracked because in this sprawling conflict, her ties to Justin Baldoni and his network of allies, enemies, and strategists have created a chain reaction that is impossible to contain. Baldoni, who once looked like a rising golden boy of Hollywood, has now found his image twisted and torn by crisis after crisis. His camp, once secure, has fractured with publicists, crisis managers, and legal strategists being pulled into discovery that exposes private communications and shocking strategies, and the one name that keeps circling back like a ghost refusing to fade is Melissa Nathan, the crisis communications expert whose fingerprints appear across multiple scandals linked not only to Baldoni, but now also to Rebel Wilson. And with every filing, with every leaked message, with every whisper from behind closed doors, the narrative grows darker. The players grow more desperate, and the consequences grow heavier for everyone involved. It all started with the declarations of James Vituska, the once Daily Mail reporter, who was dragged into the storm when his testimony became inconsistent, shifting like sand until he lost his position. But his sudden reemergence online has thrown fuel on the fire, because in cryptic posts, he claims to hold the receipts, the emails, the records, the undeniable proof that when the reckoning arrives, and it will arrive, he will stand with facts in hand, while his enemies, whoever they are, stand empty-handed. His words have unsettled everyone, because the question remains, who exactly is they? Who exactly is he threatening? Who exactly does he claim will crumble under the truth? He says he holds the imagery of stacks of evidence piled high, ready to crush excuses and false narratives, has turned the speculation wheel into overdrive, because if he truly has the timelines and the emails, then who is he protecting and who is he planning to expose? Meanwhile, Blake Lively herself, through her legal filings, has insisted that voices, like his and even mine, are central to her defense, that we hold keys to information that could decide her fate, that her legal survival depends on uncovering or silencing those who speak too freely about what lies beneath the surface of this glamorous nightmare. But just when the tension could not climb higher, the saga widened with the sudden entrance of Rebel Wilson, a figure beloved by many for her comedic persona, but now entangled in a defamation lawsuit that mirrors so many elements of the "It Ends With Us" war. Rebel Wilson, who directed her first film, The Deb, became locked in a bitter dispute with its producers, Amanda Ghost, Gregor Cameron, and Vince Holden. She accused them publicly of inappropriate behavior and financial misconduct. But they fired back with lawsuits that painted her as a director willing to smear reputations to secure her own power. And now the shocking twist is that evidence unearthed during discovery in the Baldoni-Lively legal war revealed communications, tying Rebel Wilson's crisis PR strategy directly to Melissa Nathan and her company Tag. And those communications appear to describe plans to create anonymous smear websites aimed at destroying Amanda Ghost's reputation with language that was grotesque, racially charged, and deeply damaging. Anonymous domains appeared portraying Amanda Ghost as a madam, connected to oligarchs, as a woman involved in unspeakable behavior, an assault on her identity and career that now forms the backbone of a new lawsuit filed in Los Angeles Superior Court. The attorney leading this new battle, Camille Vasquez, the same powerhouse lawyer who dismantled Amber Heard's credibility in the Johnny Depp trial, has stepped into the arena representing Amanda Ghost and her fellow producers, and in this new cross-complaint, Vasquez paints Rebel Wilson and Melissa Nathan as the architects of a dark PR campaign designed to obliterate reputations for personal gain, and her words cut deep as she describes these tactics as a cancer on Hollywood. Manipulative, destructive, and corrosive to every standard of decency she vows, accountability she vows to drag the trolls from behind their keyboards and into the light. And this declaration has sent shockwaves. Because if Vasquez succeeds, it will not only expose Rebel Wilson, but also place Baldoni's own crisis team under fire. Just as he faces his own legal reckoning, the optics are catastrophic. Baldoni's lawyer, Brian Friedman, who once represented Rebel Wilson, is suddenly tangled in the same web. And Melissa Nathan, who allegedly guided Wilson's PR strategy, is also the same strategist linked to Baldoni, raising the question of whether a pattern of covert smear operations is at the heart of multiple Hollywood scandals. And as this unfolds, the specter of Stephanie Jones, another woman who faced mysterious defamatory websites, looms over the case, because those sites too appeared to be engineered to shatter reputations, and now evidence suggests that similar tactics were deployed against Amanda Ghost, drawing chilling parallels that make it nearly impossible to dismiss the possibility of a coordinated playbook at work. And while Discovery continues to peel back layers of communication, texts, emails, drafts of websites, and strategy documents, what emerges is not a series of isolated incidents, but a disturbing picture of how influence is wielded in Hollywood, not with honesty or open confrontation, but with shadows, whispers, anonymous smears, and carefully planted narratives. And if this is proven, if the courts accept these claims, then the cost will be monumental, not only for Rebel Wilson, not only for Melissa Nathan, but for anyone connected to them, including Baldoni, and perhaps even the wider circle of agents, producers, and actors whose names have already been dragged through this unending saga. The deeper we go into this storm, the more it feels like every thread connects to another. Every revelation opens a hidden door. And what lies behind those doors is darker than anything the public ever imagined, because this is no longer just about one lawsuit or one feud. This has become an interconnected saga where every player, every agent, every lawyer, every reporter, and every strategist is caught in a web that feels impossible to escape. The question is no longer simply who said what or who filed what. The question is, who is orchestrating these moves behind the scenes, who is pulling the strings, who is planting the narratives, and who stands to gain when reputations are shattered and careers left in ruins because the timelines between the Rebel Wilson smear campaign and the unfolding Baldoni Lively war are so closely aligned that they almost seem to echo one another, like twin stories playing out on different stages, but written from the same script. Rebel Wilson may have thought she was fighting for credit on her film The Deb, but now the evidence suggests that her fight was waged not with words of truth, but with weapons of distortion, carefully crafted websites that accused producer Amanda Ghost of unimaginable things, and those accusations were not random. They were tailored to attack her heritage, her gender, her very identity, striking at the core of her public image in ways designed to permanently scar her reputation. And this is what Camille Vasquez now places at the center of her complaint. And this is why the parallels to Baldoni are impossible to ignore, because Baldoni too has been accused of leaning on covert PR plays designed to frame himself as the victim while casting others into shadow. The appearance of Melissa Nathan in both stories is like a flashing siren. In the night, you cannot look away. Her messages unearthed in Discovery show not only her awareness of Rebel Wilson's desires, but her willingness to draft strategies that could weaponize rumor into reality by cloaking lies in the anonymity of the internet. And the fact that these very strategies were revealed through the It Ends With Us litigation means that Baldoni's legal war has now dragged Rebel Wilson directly into its orbit, whether he wants it or not, because Discovery does not discriminate. Once the documents are in the record, they can ripple across multiple cases, and in this instance, the ripple has turned into a tidal wave. It is no longer about one scandal, but about a system, and if that system is fully exposed, then Hollywood's darkest PR secrets could be laid bare for the world to see. The entry of Camille Vasquez raises the stakes to an entirely new level, because she is not simply another attorney. She is a symbol, a name synonymous with dismantling false narratives in one of the most watched trials in recent memory, and her involvement signals that Amanda Ghost is not simply fighting for damages. She is fighting to expose the machinery itself. She wants to prove that Rebel Wilson and those aligned with her, including Nathan and Tag, used calculated smear tactics to gain leverage in a business fight, and if she proves it, then every other case with similar hallmarks becomes vulnerable. Every mysterious website, every sudden anonymous smear, every shadow rumor could be revisited through this new lens, and suddenly Baldoni's world and Blake Lively's defenses begin to look far less stable. Because if jurors see patterns, if judges See echoes, then the weight of suspicion multiplies. Even if technically the cases remain separate in the law of public perception, they merge, and that is where the true danger lies. And then there is the eerie voice of James Vituska, still hovering. Over the saga, his cryptic messages continue to cast a shadow across the battlefield, because he speaks as though he alone holds the master key to everything he insists he has evidence. Undeniable receipts that, when revealed, will collapse the house. Of cards built by his enemies, but he never says who those enemies are. He never names the they, and this mystery fuels speculation that perhaps he too was caught in the machinery. Perhaps he saw the gears turning from inside. Perhaps he knows who commissioned which smear, which website, which leak, and if he does, then his silence is not a shield but a countdown. And when that countdown ends, the detonation could alter everything, because imagine for a moment if he truly has the documents to prove who orchestrated which campaign. If he can draw the line from Wilson to Nathan to Baldoni to others, then the reckoning he promises would be nothing less than Hollywood's darkest unveiling. The most haunting part of all this is how reputations are destroyed, not with courtroom evidence, not with proven misconduct, but with whispers and shadows and stories seeded online, where anonymous domains and bots do the work of assassins. And once those stories take root, they spread like wildfire, leaving scars. Even if proven false, later the damage is done. And this is why Vasquez calls it a cancer, because it is not about one woman, one film, or one actor. It is about a culture where destruction is a tool, and victory is measured not in truth, but in perception. And so every new filing, every leaked text, every witness who steps forward becomes another piece of a puzzle that feels endless, and yet somehow interconnected. And as this puzzle expands, the suspense only grows, because we are left wondering who will be dragged in next, who will be unmasked, who will be forced to testify, and who will be left standing when the final verdicts come crashing down. The strangest thing about this saga is how it keeps pulling in names that no one expected to ever be linked together, and every time one of those names surfaces, it feels like the ground beneath this entire story shifts. Because what began as a dispute over a movie has morphed into a sprawling drama with tentacles reaching across lawsuits, industries, reputations, and even countries. Rebel Wilson, once seen as lighthearted comic relief, now finds herself cast as an architect of destruction. Her alleged involvement in targeting Amanda Ghost through anonymous sites dripping with racially charged insinuations has shocked even those who thought they had seen it all in Hollywood, because these were not the acts of a rival producer. These were not heated words shouted in a boardroom. These were quiet, methodical moves to create websites that presented grotesque fabrications about a woman who dared to resist her. And when those websites went live in August of 2024, they carried accusations so vile, so insidious, that they could never be unseen. And now with Camille Vasquez wielding the lawsuit, those moves are being painted as deliberate acts of malice, coordinated with the very crisis experts, who also stand beside Justin Baldoni and once stood beside Johnny Depp. The overlap is staggering, and it makes you wonder whether Hollywood's wars are really fought in courtrooms, or whether they are fought in the shadows, where PR operatives plant bombs that explode quietly online before anyone knows where they came from. And it is here that Melissa Nathan's role becomes more alarming, because she was not simply mentioned. She was allegedly documented. She was allegedly recorded in text messages discussing the creation of the very sites that later appeared. And this places her not on the periphery, but at the center of a potential conspiracy. A conspiracy that now stretches from Rebel Wilson to Baldoni, and perhaps beyond. And when the documents surfaced as part of Discovery in the It Ends With Us saga, it became clear that the two cases are not parallel by coincidence, but perhaps connected by design. Because if one strategist uses the same tactics for multiple clients, then the question is not whether Rebel Wilson is guilty or whether Baldoni is innocent. The question becomes whether Hollywood itself has been running on smear campaigns hidden behind curtains of respectability, and when those curtains fall, the audience sees not stars but puppeteers pulling strings. Meanwhile, Blake Lively remains in the storm whether she wants to or not, because her filings already place Taylor Swift and others into the center of this fight. And now with Rebel Wilson joining the expanding cast, the optics are disastrous for her, because even if she is not directly accused of smear campaigns, the fact that her case depends on testimony and perception means that the toxicity of Wilson's drama bleeds into her narrative, and perception is everything in these battles. The court of law moves slowly, carefully, deliberately, but the court of public opinion shifts with every headline, with every revelation. And in that court, guilt is measured by association, and silence can be as damning as action. And so even though Brian Friedman insists he can firewall Baldoni's defense from Rebel Wilson's fallout, the truth is that for the public, no firewall exists. The stories merge, the players blur, and the patterns become undeniable. And then there is the question of who else might surface, because every day brings whispers of new names. Jed Wallace is already mentioned in the filings as a potential coordinator of defamatory content, and this opens a new doorway into speculation about how many hands were involved. How many accounts? How many operatives? Because smear campaigns do not build themselves. Someone writes the copy, someone purchases the domains, someone sets up the servers, someone seeds the stories through social media, echo chambers, and once you start asking those questions, you realize this is not about a single text message or a single conversation. It is about an entire machinery. A machinery that thrives on secrecy, thrives on denial, thrives on plausible deniability. But discovery is a blade that cuts through denial. And if the courts allow these documents to stand, then the machinery itself could be dragged into daylight. The danger for Baldoni, Lively, Wilson, Nathan, and even Friedman is that once patterns are established, every prior case, every rumor, every whisper suddenly becomes evidence of something larger. Stephanie Jones has been screaming into the void that shadow websites targeted her. Now her cries look less like paranoia and more like warning. Because if Rebel, Wilson's team did it to Amanda Ghost then, who is to say they did not do it to Stephanie Jones or to others, and once that possibility hardens into probability, the fallout becomes limitless. Reputations, careers, entire companies could be tainted by the revelation that victory was purchased, not with talent or truth, but with shadows and destruction. And that thought is what keeps audiences glued to every twist, every new leak, every new filing. Because we are no longer watching a lawsuit, we are watching a system begin to crumble. And so here we are standing at the edge of a saga that seems to stretch endlessly across Hollywood, pulling in names that were never supposed to collide. Rebel Wilson, once the comic star of lighthearted films, now positioned at the center of a legal storm, with accusations that she authorized smear campaigns against her own producers. Camille Vasquez, the lawyer who shook the world during the Johnny Depp trial, now holding the sword of justice ready to strike Melissa Nathan. The strategist whose name appears again and again in documents linking these battles together. Her messages raising the question of whether these tactics were not isolated incidents, but part of a larger pattern and hovering. Like a ghost over it all, Justin, Baldoni, Blake, Lively, Ryan Reynolds, Taylor Swift, even reporters and anonymous figures each drawn into the widening circle of this relentless storm. What makes this story so gripping is not only the lawsuits themselves, but the eerie echoes the way the same methods appear again and again. Shadow websites, anonymous attacks, sudden whispers that destroy reputations before facts ever have a chance to breathe. And if these claims hold true, then Hollywood faces more than a scandal. It faces a reckoning, one that could shatter trust in how stories are told, who gets protected, and who gets destroyed in the name of power and leverage. The truth is, we do not yet know how deep this goes. We do not know who James Vituska intends to expose or whether Camille Vasquez will finally drag the machinery into the light. But we know this: the saga is not ending. It is only evolving, and the next revelation may be the one that changes everything forever.